The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Monday in the Rev. And today we have I think we're going to have a great show. We've had all the mayoral candidates on twice. And if you all remember, the mayor was on here and talked for virtually the entire half hour about economic development. And he made some allusions about the transition and all the issues. So we don't like ambushes, and we're not going to have a meeting without him having a chance to give his say and his opinion. Ken Fiola has graciously agreed to come on the show and give all the viewers and the people of the city the other side, because there are two sides to every issue. Before I give Kenny the free rein, I'll say we go back a very, very long way, back to Heritage State Park and the carousel. Mm-hmm. And that's a long time ago. And we have disagreed on issues and agreed on issues, but we've always managed to disagree without being disagreeable. And we've always put what we felt was the best interest of Fall River at heart. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ken Fiola. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chipper and CJ, and thank you for this opportunity to come before you today. I think, as you had mentioned earlier, you know, the mayor was on the show last week, and I had the opportunity to review that interview, and I was just astounded as to the number of inaccuracies, mistruths, and outright lies that were being purported as part of his whole dialogue as it pertained to economic development. Clearly, the mayor took that opportunity, you know, as part of his political campaign, to move forward with an agenda that seemed to be intent on undermining the credibility of the office, which is now the Bristol County Economic Development Consulting Group, or was the former Fall River Office of Economic Development. I'd just like to start off by saying that the Office of Economic Development has been around for almost 40 years, actually going since 1978, so we're actually getting closer to more years than that. But the office has not, during this entire 10-year of its existence, not once have we received any city money. So there's not one dime of city money that's come into this office from the city of Fall River since 1978, since its incorporation. Throughout the course of that time, the office has served as the city's primary economic development entity. Back in 1978, the office was put together as a private nonprofit, and it was put together to withstand changes in the administration. Because, as we can see now, what happens is when you have a lot of political change, then there's a tendency for political leaders to move in different directions or take plans in different directions and undermine plans that may be in existence. The office, when it was first incorporated, had representation from the mayor's office, the Chamber of Commerce, BCC, UMass Dartmouth, the Redevelopment Authority, and other entities, public entities in nature, as well as the private business community. That office, from then to now, has made more than 700 loans to Fall River businesses, invested more than $80 million in these loans to these companies, and helped create and retain more than 15,000 jobs for low and moderate income people. Concurrent to the lending aspect of the office, we also were charged with developing an economic development plan. And that's where I think some of the mayor's comments became very, very troublesome to me, as well as my board of directors. During the course of this interview, the mayor was saying such things that, that there was no plans in place, that he couldn't see things happening quickly enough, that he was troubled by the fact that things were taking so long to occur. And I think what he's failed to realize is that with any plan, it takes time to implement. So if you look back as to the plans that we've been charged with implementing, one was the development of the industrial park. And for those of you who haven't gone to the industrial park, I recommend that you take a ride through that park right now. There's over 60 businesses there. They range, from smaller businesses to larger businesses. And we've had a role in just about helping to site every business that was located there. We also played a role in the development of the Commerce Park, which is the former airport site, and also a role in the Technology Park, which is where Amazon is currently located amongst other companies. That didn't happen overnight. That happened throughout the course of the time. That happened as a result of us going out and securing grants for the infrastructures to create the roadways, to create the gas, electrical, water, and telecommunication infrastructure that's necessary to facilitate these businesses, and gradually build out those parcels of land to accommodate the businesses. Same thing holds true with the waterfront. If you see a lot of the activity that's taking place along the waterfront, we can trace that back to a 2001 plan that we had actually helped develop. And if you look at the recommendations of that plan, you'll see a lot of those recommendations have been implemented. And also, during the course of that plan, they said it's going to take 15 to 20 years to implement these recommendations. So you mentioned the siting of the carousel. We sited the carousel along the waterfront. A couple of the other recommendations were removal of the spaghetti ramps, the ramps that were there. Now, that was recently completed, 2-3 years ago, but that was in a plan that we worked on, that we were able to convince the state and convince the feds that those ramps had to come down to open up the vistas. That plan itself was a $180 million plan. If you look at some of the streetscapes down there, real streetscapes, not streetscapes that benefit a certain few where people may live, but these are streetscapes in the form of tree plantings and period lighting all along Duval Street, down Central Street, along Water Street. If you look at the boardwalk, we actually created the boardwalk that we took it from Heritage State Park all the way down to Bicentennial Park. If you look at the plans for the commuter rail, if you look at the 2001 plan for the commuter rail as to where the train station should be located, it says along the waterfront. The other component of that plan was, the relocation of Route 79 and the creation of a new waterfront boulevard. We finally got to the point where we were able to convince the Baker administration that that's a viable plan and that's something that should be moving forward. And they've committed close to $80 million for that, and it's actually under design right now. So these things do not happen overnight. They take time. We're not a private developer. It's not like, Chipper comes in and says, I'm going to develop this parcel of land for this purpose, and you go to the bank and you get your financing and you move it forward and you start to see your return on investment. We work in the public arena where we are dependent upon grants, and we are dependent upon securement of the grants. And then when we secure the grants, we got to implement the grants. So all this takes time. And unfortunately, I don't think the current mayor understands the time frames that are associated with these projects. And I can understand anybody's sense of urgency, but you got to step back and look at the realistic attributes of any project and understand how they get done. And to say that nothing's been occurring on the waterfront under our watch is so far from the truth, it's laughable. And it's also very, I think, insulting, not only to me, I'm paid help, but to the staff and other members of the staff, but more importantly, to the volunteers that make up that board. That's a board of directors that encompass private businessmen and private women throughout the community, and they volunteer their time on a monthly basis to make these things happen. So when I look at the issues of him saying that there's no comprehensive plan in place, that's totally ridiculous. If you switch from the waterfront to the downtown, when we were working for the Redevelopment Authority, we helped engineer 2 urban renewal plans that still have not been approved by the City Council but are ready for approval, that once again talk about development opportunities for the downtown, and it extends all the way up to Bedford and Pleasant, all the way up to Robeson Street. and down far north as Pine and as far south as Morgan Street, as well as some additional waterfront planning. These are two comprehensive plans that are waiting to be implemented, but the mayor has not moved them forward for approval. Again, you know, it's a deflection. Okay, he wants to blame other people for things that are not occurring, but in fact, a lot of what hasn't occurred is under his watch. And you know, I don't want to be sound like we are the end all to our economic development, but I'd be putting our economic development track record against any economic development agency in the entire state in terms of accomplishments, and also in terms of what we can and have facilitated, you know, throughout the years, and what we can do in the future. You know, the mayor took an opportunity to say that our only role in Amazon was filling out paperwork. Again, that clearly shows that the mayor has no idea as to how economic development works. If you want to trace the Amazon project back, you have to take a leap even further back in the future, when we actually were working with the Lambert administration at that time, and we proposed a land swap with the Salucci administration, in which the city would give them, I think it was 4,000 acres to add to the Freetown State Forest to create this bioreserve. And in return, the redevelopment authority would buy 300 acres adjacent to the industrial park for further industrial economic development expansion. We engineered that deal. We put it together, working with a lot of different people to make it happen. But we were the ground people in getting that thing forward. And then that sat idly for a number of years. We had this 300 acres, but we had no way to access it. We worked with the Salucci administration, the Swift administration, and then Governor Romney came in, and they didn't believe in the 300 acres because they wanted to see which companies we would have locate there before they invested in the infrastructure. So it was a chicken and the egg. No company wants to wait for the infrastructure to be invested before they make a commitment. They want to commit after the infrastructure is there. Throughout the course of the Romney administration, the redevelopment authority spent close to $400,000 under our guidance to actually permit that site for development and get it to 25% in the design ready. When Barack Obama became president, he created the American Recovery Act and was looking for shovel-ready projects of infrastructure to help stimulate economic development. And we were one of the only projects in Massachusetts that were ready for that. And we secured, through that program, another $35 million to construct that infrastructure and interchange off of Route 24. Without that interchange or infrastructure, there'd be no Amazon. So we trace it back to getting the land ready for development. And then we could trace Amazon back to 2000, probably 2013, early 2014. Where we actually replied to a request for proposals looking to accommodate a company that wanted to construct 1 million square feet of development. We didn't know it was Amazon at that time. We just applied. We got whittled down in a short list, and ultimately we were able to secure that project for the city of Fall River. But I was just looking at my files the other day. There are literally thousands of emails pertaining to that project, and thousands of man-hours spent on that project to make it become a reality. And we took that through 3 different mayoral administrations. The Flanagan administration, the Sutter administration, and ultimately this administration was there to cut the ribbon. And we took it through administrations which were characterized by turmoil, right? There was another recall election taking place during that time, right? And here we are dealing with Amazon, who's one of the largest corporations in the world, and they call me up and say, what the heck's going on in Fall River? And we were able to, ease their fears. We were able to buttress them from all the controversy and the craziness and confusion and get that project done. So for the mayor to say that all we did was fill out paperwork, it's tragically comical. And I think it's indicative of his inability to understand how economic development works. And when you look at the time frame from when he took us out of the economic development role for the city of Fall River back in the spring of 17 to now, I would just ask you this: what economic development has taken place in the city? Okay, he wants to take credit for Amazon, which he had little or nothing to do with, to be honest with you. He wants to take credit for South Coast Marketplace, which again, he had little or nothing to do with it. It was our office that put that deal together. It was our office that negotiated the market basket component of that deal, which was the foundation of that deal, because without market basket as your lead tenant, none of that other development would have occurred, right? Market basket was the entity that was driving that engine. Okay, once you got Market Basket, then it became a lot easier for the owners and the developers of that project to recruit these other businesses, to recruit the Starbucks, to recruit the TJ Maxx, to recruit the Picture Show, to recruit Cappy's Liquor, and everything else that you see there. We did that. The board did that. Volunteers did that, okay? Those were finite projects that you can reach out and touch and say that they were done as part of the Office of Economic Development. So, you know, when I look at it, when I'm watching this video and I'm saying, I feel like I'm in a twilight zone. I'm listening to the CEO of the city stating all these misfacts, stating, you know, these mistruths, and then trying to convince an audience that it was his administration that were responsible for these things, or undermining what this office brought to the table in terms of getting these things done. We've been at this for a long period of time, okay? Listen, people love us or they hate us. They disagree with us or they agree with us, okay? And that goes with the territory, and I'm comfortable with that, okay? But one thing they cannot, I don't think, you know, criticize us about is our ability to get things done. People may not like TIFs, they may not like this project, they may not like that project. I get all that. But we're here in the city. I'm a resident of the city. I own a home in the city. I pay taxes here. We contribute to the city. You know, I go to church on Sundays, people see me and I get earfuls, either good or bad, wherever I go. I'm 6'5", I can't hide. So when I'm shopping at Market Basket or coming out of church or just walking my dog, people are talking to me about stuff. And that's good. I love that stuff because, you know, we don't claim to have all the answers. We don't claim to be the know-it-alls of everything. But I can tell you that what we've done is implement a track record that is quantifiable. And if you look at the track record and you talk to the people in the private sector, I think they would be the first to start, you know, singing our song in terms of getting these things done. So, again, I just look at these things, I just shake my head and I'm saying, where did all this come from? Why are we moving in this direction? You know, why did the mayor choose us to be, you know, the scapegoat for things that may be wrong in economic development? I don't get it.
Well, I'll weigh in a little bit, and I think it was very good that you did this because, you know, economic development is obviously the foundation of any community, and this is a difficult community. Let's not make any bones. We never make any bones on this show about it. This is a tough place to get business to come to.
Absolutely.
We know that we've always hovered around half the state average in per capita income. And the other thing I think you really highlighted was the fact that this is not a, you know, this is not something you can do in a week or two, especially major businesses. They want access routes. They want a lot of things. They're looking at so many variables, and it does take a long time. Yep. And I will be perfectly frank. I've never been in favor of politicians running economic development because it becomes this, a political football. And some things take a very long time. And, you know, that is a reality. But I think that the thing that disturbed me, and I'd like you to comment on it, was when he said that, you know, there was you didn't miss a beat. You know, you got interim people plugged in. There has to be a continuity. I think what, you know, the moral of the story you just told about, sometimes things take sometimes decades. And it does. I mean, you know, it's a reality, and people have to understand that. And that's what disturbs me, because when you start using it as a political platform and a football, you're being disingenuous at best, because to tell people you can just, because you want to, you have an idea. An idea is only the seed. You know, you plant the seed, and sometimes it takes a long time for that seed to develop. But he fundamentally said that they haven't missed a beat, and interim people are good. It's okay. It's fine to do it that way. And I'd just like you to comment, because to me, you can't give people a stipend for doing something that got 25 other duties to do and do it justice, especially economic development in a community like Fall River, which at best it's a nightmare. Because look, people cannot, it's hard to run a business in Fall River when people don't have money. And so I'd just like you to kind of comment on that.
Absolutely. So since 2017, where we were no longer the city's primary economic development agency, I would just ask the public, what has happened? Okay, I would argue that not much has happened. You're always going to have the ebb and flow of the economy, or businesses open, and small businesses, hairdressers, little diners, those are always open and closed during the course of any economy. But what's really happened from the large picture economic development view? You've had King Philip, which has turned into a nightmare, and the city's being sued for $62 million on it. He may try to brush that off. There may be some legitimacy. There may not be some legitimacy in that lawsuit, but it's a lawsuit. We, to this day, we get calls, and I'm not saying this, and people, are going to hate on me for this, but this is God's honest truth. We get calls into our office from businesses that are calling the mayor's office, CDA, and other entities, looking for information, trying to get assistance, and there's no return calls. Because the call will come in, I'm ABC Business, I'm looking to expand, blah, blah, blah. I said, listen, you really need to talk to the mayor's office or CDA, blah, blah. And I push them to the city. Inevitably, 10 days, 2 weeks, they'll call back and say, look, nobody's returning our calls. Can you help us, right? And so we do help them, okay? Even though we're not getting paid to assist them, it's just difficult not to help them, because at the end of the day, mayors come and mayors go, but we still live here. I don't want to have the city miss out on opportunities because nobody's returning a phone call, okay? The mayor said during this thing, tell me one thing that's not happened in economic development. Well, tell me what has happened. Let's talk about the number of opportunities that we're not capitalizing upon because you're under indictment, because CEOs do not feel comfortable in dealing with the CEO of the city who's looking at who's under federal indictment. People, companies have choices as to where they're going to locate. If you're a company looking to locate in Fall River, Taunton, New Bedford, where do you think you're going to try to go first? You're going to go to those other communities that have political stability, that the mayor or the town administrator may not be under federal indictment, that you're all going to be able to speak to that individual in confidence, that there's going to be confidentiality. The thing that worked about our office, and this is, again, God's honest truth, when I first started working with Amazon, I didn't know who they were until I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, okay? I signed that non-disclosure agreement, and I couldn't even tell my board of directors who I was dealing with, nor could I tell the mayors at that time, right? Because they were so, intent on keeping everything confidential. They didn't want anything to leak. That's what that NDA did. Businesses want to deal in confidence with other, as they're trying to move their projects along. They don't want to be subject to, a quid pro quo or some sort of, understanding that, if my business is going to locate here, you're going to, I'd like you to buy tickets to my political times and all this. Look at the marijuana issues as a perfect example. The mayor has the ability to issue these marijuana letters of non-opposition. He does so, no city council approval. He has the sole authority with a sign off by the police chief saying that this comports to the law, which they all do. And yet, you have these companies donating to his legal defense fund. How does that conversation come up? Chip, you're coming in, we want a marijuana. Okay, Chip, how you doing? Yeah, I want to open up a dispensary. Okay, yeah. You tell me, yeah, I need a letter of opposition. Okay, here's your letter of opposition. Oh, do you think you just out of the blue say, oh, listen, I understand you're having some legal difficulty. I'm gonna contribute to your legal defense fund?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In a perfect world. Yeah.
Is that how that conversation goes? Right? And I'm saying these are the types of things that you've got to keep economic development private, okay? Because nobody wants to be subject to those things, right? When people come and people do these things, there's confidentiality. They don't have these things spread out and used for political purposes. The only time that these things become public when they're on office, with our office, is when they become an actual project, because there's a lot of projects that don't become. You talk about them, they don't happen. So we don't want to, whet the appetite of the public with false expectations. We keep everything confidential until such time there's a groundbreaking or they're going to get, approvals to do something like that. But up until that point, we just don't do those things.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, but you mentioned King Philip. I think this is a classic example. And I know you've been in it a very, very long time. And as you said, it's about process. We've talked about the King Philip suit on the show. And this is why I believe, and it's my opinion, and we never, people obviously always entitled to their opinion. This is why government should get involved. The political machination shouldn't enter into a very difficult process at first. And if an organization like yours was involved in that, you try to work with the people, and you are an attorney.
Yes, I am.
So obviously, being an attorney, you understand, what is legal and what isn't legal. That's part of the process.
Right.
And I'm sure you work diligently to avoid getting into a situation where the people you're trying to bring into the city begin to litigate against the city. Right. And I think this is another example of the issue with King Philip on how economic development has to be, at least in my opinion, taken away from the political sector, because it cannot become something that's going to be part of bullet points on a campaign flyer.
Right. So we were involved early on in the King Philip process. So it's just like anything else. We'll use you as an example, okay? You come to our office, you say, I have a plan to develop King Philip Mill. It's okay. So we get information, we'll give you the environmental report, there's a feasibility analysis, first of all, what do you want to develop it for? I want to put it in Margarita. Okay, here's all this information, blah, blah, blah. Go back, take it, digest it, come back to us. Okay, yeah, I'm still interested in moving the project forward. We would then probably say, okay, well, it's a city-owned property, so we're going to introduce you to the mayor so that, we can figure out how this can work. And then we will then continue to work with that private developer as the intermediary between the city and the developer. But at some point in time, I'm going to vet you, okay? Because now what you're talking about is a $30 million project. So now, at some point in time, I'm going to say, something, Chip, but before we get too far down this road, I need to see that you have the financial strength, capacity to get this project done. So you're going to need to show me your corporate tax returns, you're going to show me your personal tax returns, so I know that I'm dealing with somebody of substance here. And then you're also going to have to show to me what your other experiences in these like type of projects, right? Oh. So that way I can then say we can separate the contenders from the pretenders, right? At that point, I'm going to know that you have the experience and the financial wherewithal to get this thing done. They took us out of the project right before we were going to vet you. They said, oh, you're no longer involved in this project. The city administrator and myself are going to handle it. I said, okay. And then they moved forward down this road with this Mr. Rafi Weiss, who seemed like a good guy. I have nothing bad to say about him, but nobody ever vetted the financials, right? And then everything started spinning out of control, and the whole thing got messy, and the whole thing. But now, what do you have? What's at King Philip in the middle? You have litigation. You have DEP issues with regard to the taking down of the building and other things. So you have all these types of things that are occurring.
CJ, what do we got?
Nothing.
Run on the credits. Well, thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
It was very educational.